Ukrainian defenders regained control of half of Severodonetsk. The Ukrainian armed forces also captured 8 Russian occupants. This was reported by RBC Ukraine with reference to the head of the Luhansk OVA Sergei Gaidai. The Russians controlled 70% of Severodonetsk, but within 2 days they were pushed back. The city is divided in half. The occupiers lost a huge number of personnel, with 8 Russians in captivity, he said. According to Gaidai, the Russian command threw a lot of manpower to capture Severodonetsk and the Lysychansk-Bakhmut highway. In general, the situation in the Luhansk region is complicated. The occupiers do not stop shelling. In particular, during the night, Russian troops fired about 30 shells at the humanitarian headquarters building in Lysychansk. As a reminder, the General Staff confirmed that the occupants continue to storm Severodonetsk. They control the eastern part of the city. Russian dictator Vladimir Putin needed propaganda success, so he demanded that his army seize the Luhansk region. However, Severodonetsk turned out to be a trap set by the Ukrainian military. What has been happening in the Luhansk region over the past week and how Russia is reacting to the events, international observer Ivan Yakovina told Radio NV's broadcast. Russia's political leadership, namely Vladimir Putin, is demanding that both Lysychansk and Severodonetsk be seized in order to declare full control of the Luhansk Oblast. In fact, Lysychansk and Severodonetsk are, in my opinion, 10% of the entire region, with the rest of the territory seized. Putin needs propaganda success, and so he demands that his army seize Lysychansk and Severodonetsk as quickly as possible. Since the encirclement failed, Russia threw all its troops into a frontal attack, first on Severodonetsk. This offensive was quite successful. A few days ago it was claimed that 70 to 80% of Severodonetsk was captured, that the Ukrainian army was retreating, that it was evacuating across the Seversky Donets River to Lysychansk. The day before yesterday reports began to appear that things weren't so bad. And yesterday it became clear that the Ukrainian army had prepared an ambush there. The Ukrainian troops had been preparing for a very long time for the siege of Severodonetsk and had an approximate idea of the directions in which the attackers would go, so they prepared themselves. Maybe they laid mines, maybe they set up ambushes. They let the attackers into the city, then closed the trap and killed them all there. I didn't really believe this story at first, thought it sounded too good to be true. But I read, former FSB colonel, terrorist, Igor Girkin, Strelkov, and he says that indeed the Ukrainian counteroffensive in Severodonetsk is going well, is developing. He said, I don't want to say the scale of the problems. Obviously, the scale is quite serious. Now the Russians are retreating from Severodonetsk in a panic. The Kadyrovites are suffering heavy losses because they were let in for the first time. It was so important for Putin to capture Severodonetsk that he even let in the Kadyrovites, who usually don't take risks, who usually only make videos, to fight. They suffered very heavy losses there. Defeat there in general for the Russian army now. What's interesting? Girkin said a day earlier that the mopping up of Severodonetsk was coming to an end, but now it's no, no, no. He claims that the counteroffensive in Severodonetsk, attention, was organized by Polish and American troops. He says, there is Polish-American speech on the air. They can't believe that Ukrainians can organize such a serious offensive. They decided, so they wouldn't feel so ashamed, to say that it's the Americans who are beating them. Why are there so many Americans there? Naturally, they are Ukrainians. However, the fact remains that in urban conditions the Ukrainian counterattack in Severodonetsk is very successful. I don't know what will happen next. I think that at some stage Severodonetsk will have to be abandoned anyway, because it is on the left bank of the Seversky Donets. It is really difficult to defend it, especially when the bridges are broken. It is very difficult to ferry reinforcements there. Therefore, I think it will have to be abandoned in order to keep the army alive. But considering that the garrison in Severodonetsk gave the Russian troops a light along with the Kadyrovites, because they were defeated there, that sounds very cool. Let's hope it's all true. The very fact that Severodonetsk has become a huge mass grave for the Russian army cannot but arouse some interest. An absolutely amazing, heroic story. Here we see one very important feature. Where the advantage of the Russian Federation is reduced to zero in artillery, where artillery is not so important, in urban conditions artillery is used less, because you can hit your own, and Russian artillery is not too accurate. The ability to fight in urban conditions, with a machine gun, pistol, grenade launcher, becomes important. Under these conditions, we see that the Ukrainians are much more successful than the Russians. The Russians are retreating and scattering. This is important because with the US supply of artillery, the Russian advantage in artillery is about to wane. I think it will take a couple of months. And then a serious war will begin, soldier versus soldier in a populated area, where the occupiers won't stand a chance.